That is, until I had had enough. Both Toby and my mother showed up late one night and began pounding on my door and screaming that I was an ungrateful and useless son and started destroying things outside my house. I had been expecting them to show up and had bought a taser gun. As quickly as I could, I opened the front door to my house. When they saw me with a gun, they started running. But I chased after them and tased them both. By the time they were recovering, the police had shown up and they were finally able to arrest them. Hey there, my name is Kai, and I have a very unique situation. You see, when I was very young, my mother Tanya wasn't very responsible. And as a result, my sister Tasha and I ended up going and living with our grandmother Kathy. From time to time, our mother would come and visit, but the purposes for her visits were always for some ulterior motive. Usually it was because she needed money, but she always tried to pretend she was doing it because she missed us. Which of course she didn't.
Hey guys, it's great to see you. Hey Tanya, to what do we owe the pleasure of your company? It's been a while and I wanted to see you guys.
Mama!
Hey kids! Tanya, what is the real reason that you are here? Well, yes, if you can spare some cash. I'm a little low.
My grandmother rolled her eyes, but eventually did give my mother some money. Quite literally, shortly after she was given money, my mother left. Sadly, it was always like that. She would come and ask our grandmother for money, and then leave shortly thereafter. It always felt bad to know that our mother never came to visit for us. She was only ever interested in getting money from our grandmother, and then moved on. As we grew up, the visits were far more focused on just getting money, and our mother became more honest about what she was visiting us for. Even the few times that we've seen her on holidays, it was all the same thing. Hey Mama, Merry Christmas!
Yeah, whatever. Hey Mom, I need money. More? You came last month and asked for money. What do you need it for? Mind your own business. Just give me the money.
Eventually, I stopped wishing that my mother would come and visit. I realized that she clearly didn't care about my sister and I, but only ever wanted money. As I grew up, I came to realize that my mother had drug problems and that she needed the money to pay for her habit. Knowing that did humanize her, but that didn't really make it any better. When I was 15, we had a huge scare. The police called my grandmother and told her that they had found my mother passed out in the streets. She had overdosed and nearly died on the street. For a few weeks afterwards, she was in and out of the hospital.
Hey, listen to me. I need money. Tanya, what makes you think that we would give you money? You need help, not money so that you can get more drugs. You bitch, just give me what I want.
We were forced to call the police on her, and after a struggle in which our mother broke an officer's nose. The cops then used their batons to knock her unconscious. It was incredibly embarrassing. After that, we didn't hear from our mother for many years. During those years, Tasha and I grew up and went off to school. Our grandmother helped us pay for school to make our lives much easier. Both of us passed our courses with flying colors and even managed to find very good jobs. Once we were doing well for ourselves, we moved out, but we would visit our grandmother often. One day, though, we went home and found our grandmother had passed away. She had had a heart attack in the middle of the night and passed away. We were heartbroken, but we had always known that this would happen one day. Luckily, she had told us what she had wanted, and so we were able to make preparations for her service very easily. Her funeral was beautiful, and many people came to mourn her passing. A few days after the funeral, our grandmother's lawyer contacted my sister and I and asked us to come to his office to hear the reading of the will. Honestly, we had always known that our grandmother had some money, but we never imagined that she would be loaded. Apparently, our grandfather had owned several businesses when he was younger and had sold them and put all that money into investments that he and our grandmother lived off of until they had both passed away. At any rate, now that she had passed, our grandmother had her lawyer divide them up equally and give half to each of us, along with a couple of properties. Both Tasha and I were blown away. We weren't exactly poor, but this inheritance easily made our lives 1,000 times easier. I was given the house that we grew up in, and with some of the inheritance that I had been given, I began to renovate it a bit so that it was more in line with my style. I had contractors and workers coming in and out the house. So many, in fact, that I hadn't learned most of their names until one day I noticed one guy that was working on the bathroom, and he was installing the wrong kind of tile and had painted the walls the wrong color. I was annoyed, of course, but I had just assumed that it was miscommunication, and so I spoke with him to find out where the error had occurred. Hi there. So listen, You're doing great work, but this bathroom is all wrong. The walls are meant to be a much lighter color, and the tiles are also meant to be a light gray and not black like you've installed. I'm sorry, but I'm just doing what the owner told me to do. That's not possible, as I'm the owner, and this isn't what I asked for. Can you show me who told you to do it this way? The man was very confused, but he led me downstairs to the kitchen, where an older man was speaking loudly into his cell phone. The worker pointed at the man and indicated that he was the owner, to which I thanked him and instructed him the proper way that the bathroom was to be redone before finding out who this stranger was. As I walked up to him, the odd man looked at me with contempt and sneered. "Who the hell are you, and what are you doing speaking to the workers? If you don't leave right now, I'll have you arrested for trespassing." "And how can I be trespassing on my own property? Who the hell are you, and what gives you the right to tell my workers what to do?" Just then, my mother walked into the kitchen. She looked very worn out and quite a bit heavier than the last time that I had seen her. I knew that this was going to be something very annoying.
Oh, it's you. What are you doing here?
"Hello, Mother. I'm here because I inherited the house. Why are you here, and who is this guy?"
This is my fiancé, Toby, and there is no way that this is your house. My mother passed away, and as her only child, that means that everything that was hers is now mine.
"That's not how things work, Mom. Grandma left this house to me in her will. She didn't leave anything to you because she knew that you would just squander it and sell it for drugs."
How dare you speak to me that way? This is my house, whether you like it or not.
I wasn't listening to her anymore, and so I took out my phone and called the police. As soon as Toby realized what I was doing, he tried to wrestle the phone away from me. He tried to slap me, and when I kept dodging him, he then tried to kick and punch me. I can only imagine how the conversation sounded on the other end of the telephone. But thankfully, they sent out a squad car that pulled up to the house. Toby and my mother began to look panicked when the police showed up. They looked like they were about to run when the officers pulled them aside and began questioning them. 2 other officers pulled up and began speaking with me, and after I showed them the copy of the will that I had been given, they then began trying to talk to my mother and Toby and get them to leave. This made both of them extremely angry, and both of them began to scream and shout at me at the officers, and Toby even took a swing at the one closest to him. The officer was struck on the chin and fell down, but immediately got back up, and along with the other officers, they threw my mother and Toby into the back of their squad car and drove off. I thought that that was the end of it, but the next day, both of them were back and they were harassing the workers, and when they saw me, Toby charged at me and tried to punch me, but I managed to dodge his blow and shoved him so hard that he fell on his ass. I then called the police and had them taken away again, but this time I made sure that the police took my full report on what had happened, and I filed for a restraining order against them. I wasn't going to take any chances with them. I knew what my mother was capable of. The next day, I got a call from Tasha saying that our mother and Toby were doing the same thing to her at her place. I didn't understand how they managed to be out police custody twice. Our mother was screaming that the will that we both had been witnesses to was a fake, and that if we didn't give her what she felt she was owed, that she would sue us into oblivion, and that she would leave us broke and penniless. Both Tasha and I knew that she was full of crap, and that if she dared to challenge the will that she would lose, and so we went to our grandmother's lawyer and asked them to represent us. Weeks later, we were dragged into court, but it didn't take long for the judge to see that the will was legitimate, and that our mother was merely crazy, and had just assumed that, as her mother only had the one child, that she just automatically inherited everything. The judge tried to explain that that simply was not the case, but our mother began to have a full-blown tantrum and screeched in court that the judge didn't know what he was talking about. After a couple minutes, the judge had the guards put our mother and Toby in jail for being in contempt of the court. They fought like hell, but the officers overpowered them. She was jailed for 1 week. Once she got out, my mother began to call my sister and I, threatening us and constantly trying to get us to give in and give something. At first she wanted our entire inheritance, but the longer we denied her, she slowly began to pivot and just ask for some money instead. Both Tasha and I had agreed that she didn't deserve anything and stonewalled her. More than once, she and Toby would try to come to our homes and intimidate us, but they always left before the police would show up to enforce the restraining order. That is, until I had had enough. Both Toby and my mother showed up late one night and began pounding on my door and screaming that I was an ungrateful and useless son, and started destroying things outside my house. I had been expecting them to show up and had bought a taser gun. As quickly as I could, I opened the front door to my house. When they saw me with a gun, they started running. But I chased after them and tased them both. By the time they were recovering, the police had shown up, and they were finally able to arrest them. Because of their repeated harassment of us, the court decided to sentence them to a year in prison. Few months into their prison sentence, I heard rumors of how my grandmother's ghost will torment my mother in prison. People also told me that when they were finally released, that they had been forced to live on the street. Since they didn't pay their rent because they were in prison, their landlord had sold all their belongings and had evicted them. I have no doubt that the two of them ended up breaking up as well. Although what became of them after that, I have no idea. As for my sister and I, we are just enjoying our lives, and I'm happy to say that my sister is currently engaged, and I have no doubt that I'll be an uncle within a year or so. Thank God we had such an amazing grandmother who was there to support us, and that we weren't reliant on our mother. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.